What's going on, everybody? It is that time again. The Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 218 on this Thursday, October 16th, 2025. Josh Callaway, Collin Kennedy with, what is that here? Is that water?
So I start my day with an alarming amount of cold brew concentrate with a splash of water. And then what I do is I use the concentrate glass as a creatine mixture with vitamin D. This is my go cocktail. You know what I mean? I'm getting ready to hit the road. We're going to talk some ball, fueling myself.
We're recording a little earlier in the day. Opted to go out like normal time, Thursday afternoon, but a little bit earlier. Collin going to get up to Oklahoma for the next couple of days, hitting the OK Preps circuit the next couple of nights. Obviously, Thursday, we talk recruiting. We have a lot of recruiting stuff to get into today. Oklahoma picked up another commit in 2026. The coaching carousel is going in college football. How does it impact Oklahoma? OU in position to maybe take advantage a little bit. Some interesting wrinkles that we'll get into with Collin there. Some other team kind of housekeeping things. And as always, we'll get Collin's thoughts on the game this weekend and kind of his general, where he's at with the current team as they head out to Columbia this weekend for a huge game with South Carolina. So a lot to get to. A nice Thursday program for you. A reminder as we get started, as always, you can subscribe to Sooners Illustrated at oklahoma.247sports.com. Use the promo code SoonersPod60, all one word, capital S, capital P if you're listening on pod. It's on the screen if you're on YouTube. Get you 60% off a VIP membership for a year to Sooners Illustrated and the entire 247 Sports Network. So take advantage of that promo code. Season's at about its midway point. Still a ton of big games to go. Recruiting news, sign dates coming up here, in a couple of months. So a great time. Hop in. Hoop season about to start. So jump in and be a part of the community with us over at Sooners Illustrated. All right, CK, you're coming up to Oklahoma for the OK Prep circuit. We got some other recruiting stuff we're going to get into on the program today, and like I said, some housekeeping things with the current team on the back end. Let's go ahead and start with the obvious big news on the recruiting side in the last week since we've last spoken. Jacob Curry's in the boat. So this is a guy we talk about, last several weeks. The 4-star linebacker, safety, hybrid player from Florida. It's a guy that, again, we've talked about him for a while now. Was at one point Northwestern commit, and then he just started getting the offers rolling in. Oklahoma liked where they were with him. And they got it done whenever that was, late last week, I think. Was that Friday maybe that he jumped in? I can't remember. It all kind of blurs together. Jacob Curry in the boat. Collin, you've talked about this guy a few times. It just seems like a perfect Brent Venables player. What did Oklahoma do to get this done? And what are your kind of expectations for Curry as he gets into this 2026 class?
Yeah, look, this is another ideal fit in terms of Oklahoma's recruiting efforts in 2026, OU evaluating its board, and then also I think that this is just kind of a perfect fit for Jacob Curry. And as far as how this went, obviously he took his official visit in Norman for the Auburn game, if I remember correctly, and that trip went extremely well, but it was very apparent out of that visit that Jacob still wanted to evaluate other options. He had just kind of released a top schools list at the time. More offers were coming in. Ohio State, Auburn, Florida State was in there, Baylor as well. And so I don't think anyone blamed Jacob Curry at the time whenever he was leaving Norman for saying, I just want to be sure. And he went through his process. I believe he took an official visit to Ohio State a few days before making this commitment to Oklahoma. That'll tell you something, right? The fact that the Sooners kind of survived an OV in Columbus for someone like Jacob Curry.
No.
And several other programs down in the Southeast. I mean, Jacob Curry could have easily chosen to stay closer to home, or he could have gone to a place like Ohio State. But I think he recognized not only the blue blood status that is Oklahoma, I think he got to experience what Norman provides on a game day, but I think he also obviously was able to see Brent Venables' defense firsthand. I believe that was his first time in Norman as well. And so he kind of got to get the lay of the land. And overall, it was very apparent that Jacob Curry felt like this was a place that was not only going to benefit him, but be very comfortable for him. And I think the other thing you have to acknowledge here too, honestly, Josh, is tip of the cap here to Nate Dreiling, Oklahoma's linebacker coach who joined the staff over the offseason. Jacob Curry is someone who he has family in Oklahoma. I believe his grandfather still lives in Seminole. And so there's some OU fans in the family, but at the same time, Nate Dreiling was the first coach to ever offer Jacob Curry back in 2023.
Yeah.
And that relationship, basically a couple years old at that point, all of a sudden comes into play whenever OU hires Nate Dreiling. So a subtle advantage that the Sooners brought to the table, everything came together perfectly. This is a guy, like you mentioned, we've talked about it tons of times, who the versatility he brings to the table, ideal fit for what Oklahoma wants to do schematically with those second-level defenders. And for Jacob Curry, whether it's his grandfather and some of the family ties to the state of Oklahoma, so the relationship and trust he had in his first ever offer from a guy like Nate Dreiling to now seeing what OU can provide to him, a lot of people check a lot of boxes with this commitment.
No doubt. 21st guy into the class in 2026. He's right there in that kind of top half, a composite 4-star. You go into this defensive group. We talked a lot about Ja'Cory Smith. Obviously, you love the edge rushers in the group. You got the Jandro brothers, which are seem like they're cut from a similar cloth. This defensive group in 26 is pretty nice. You're kind of looking at the players here, kind of at all levels of it. You kind of like what they have. And, we talked a lot about the summer. This 26 class was kind of slow coming along. It wasn't, certainly like what even they've done in 27 so far. It's off to this blazing start. It's kind of been a little bit more of a slow burn with 26. But you like the group, right? I mean, you like the group here. There's a lot of players that you could see making a pretty big impact before too long. And obviously, look, that's how recruiting goes. All these guys are not going to pan out. That's just how it works out. But there's a lot on here that you can kind of talk yourself into, like, I kind of like every guy on here almost in their own way. It feels like they've done a pretty good job in this class. It's not going to be flashy. It's not going to be top 10, that sort of thing. But it's a pretty good group of players. And Curry, I think, fits in right into that, right? I mean, just a lot of good football players in this group, in this class.
Yeah, I don't think it's any shock to anybody that Oklahoma's recruiting well on the defensive side of the ball, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what they've been able to accomplish this season and even before that, Brent Venables, guys like Todd Bates, Miguel Chavis, Brandon Hall, now and Nate Dreiling in the mix. You got a Wes Goodwin. James Skalski has always kind of been a primary player behind the scenes. And the list goes on. Jay Valai, Xavier Brewer. So many defensive staffers have not only put together the product on that side of the ball for Oklahoma and given OU a new identity on the defensive side, but they have made that system and that look relatable for a lot of guys on the recruiting trail.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of recruits trust these coaches, specifically under a big name like Brent Venables. I know we're talking about really young guys, but they still know who Brent Venables is, right? They know his reputation.
Sure.
And then they get to know the staffers around him. And I just think OU's in a really attractive place to go play defense right now. And on the flip side, to your point, you like the class because, number one, I think you put it aptly, like, a lot of good football players, just really good football players. Some of these guys don't have the most traits in the world or the freakiest testing times, but even like, for example, a Jay, one of the crown jewels of the class, he may not be 6'5", 260 pounds of all arm length and muscle, but the guy is one of the most polished pass rushers in the country, just knows what he's doing. And then I love the fact that a lot of these guys are ideal schematic fits. Oklahoma has to go through every recruiting cycle, identifying guys who can play multiple positions in their defensive system, guys that are willing and able to move around, guys that have what it takes to play not only multiple positions, but they bring the physicality and mentality that OU looks for on that side of the ball. It's just, I talked about checking boxes earlier. Oklahoma's checking boxes with this defensive class, and Jacob Curry certainly part of it.
And I mean, not for nothing, but I mean, you kind of Oklahoma's hit rate on the defensive recruiting in this staff pretty good. A lot of these guys have come in and, if not immediate impact, certainly by year two. And you just look at kind of all over the roster. We talk about the depth and how good it is over there. Remember, this last portal cycle, they barely took anybody on defense because they didn't need to. They recruited really well defensively, again, at every level, and it feels like they've kind of done that again. Here in 2026, they probably aren't done in 2026. There's still some more things hanging out there. We'll get into one of those here in just a second as we kind of start to the coaching carousel is spinning in college football. And, we've done this before. Last season, I remember certainly whenever Nick Saban retired, we talked about that a little bit. Or I guess that was before last season. You know what I'm talking about. Mike Gundy got fired a few weeks ago. We'd like to get into that, the kind of the ripple effects of when there are coaching changes in college football. It's already going. You saw James Franklin get fired at Penn State. There's more movement that sounds like it could be coming. Looking at you, Florida. For you, Collin, the coaching carousel and the movement that we've already had, and it feels like we're going to have, it's going to affect Oklahoma on the recruiting side in a positive way, it would seem. What are some of the impacts? Because it feels like OU in position to maybe kind of strike here on some of the coaching moves that have already happened and some other ones that feel like they're coming up soon that I know you wanted to get into.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and start with Penn State. That's the primary headline in college football currently. Sure. Nittany Lions go ahead and make the decision to fire James Franklin.
What a crazy thing. I mean, they were in the top 5 3 weeks ago. It's crazy how fast they can change.
They were advancing in the playoff a few months ago. Like
they were in the semis, yeah.
They were a couple plays away from potentially competing for a national title,
Yep.
And that's a big picture discussion for another day. But I will say on the heels of that, right? And I'm glad you brought that up. It's like, this is kind of why we have to have this conversation, because the expectation level for these coaches is now higher than ever when the landscape is as unpredictable as ever before. I mean, roster movement, the playing field has been leveled to a degree. It's harder to build long-term depth. A lot of staff moving all over the country. I mean, it's kind of crazy how quickly the picture can flip in the matter of months. And Penn State is suffering because of that. And so Oklahoma, I mean, you're going to ask me here in a little bit, what's my panic meter with Oklahoma? I would tell OU fans, it could always be worse, because this is probably a friendly reminder of what's going on out there in college football. And Oklahoma's ready to actually capitalize on this stuff, which I still believe is a testament to what's going on in Norman. Now, I'll start with one specific name, Ja'Sir Rogers. Some folks picked up on this a couple of days ago. Oklahoma made a new 2026 wide receiver offer in the cycle. Ja'Sir Rogers, 88 3-star, the number 101 overall wideout in the country for us at 24/7 Sports. If you've kept up with the show, you know how these like 24/7 player grades go. Then like an 88, not always, but most of the time, an 88 signals this guy's just a really good football player, a guy that can definitely go play at the Power 4 level, but may not be the most toolsy or traitsy. And that's kind of what Ja'Sir Rogers is. 5'11", 180, just really solid football player. I believe his nickname out there, by the way, this is a top 2 player in the state of Delaware. I don't know the last time Oklahoma recruited a player from Delaware.
I was just thinking that.
That's my homework, I guess, for the next couple of weeks as OU pursues this guy. But 5'11", 180, top 2 player in Delaware. And I guess his nickname out there in Delaware might be Spider-Man. I'm doing my homework. But you love a guy that plays receiver, and the potential nickname here is Spider-Man. So the Sooners make the offer. I mean, OU's already in a really advantageous position at wide receiver at 26, and we're about to dive into that a little bit more, especially with all this change going on in college football and more anticipated. But Ja'Sir Rogers, like, OU really likes this guy. They really like him. I'm already hearing that Oklahoma is pressing hard, not just to get him on campus, likely for the next home game, but OU would love to get an OV on the books, like really dive into the visit weekend for this guy and invest a lot of time in pursuing him in hopes of flipping him from Penn State. He is still committed to Penn State, which is a little bit different than what you're seeing out there. But he also made it very clear on social media that he plans to explore a lot of options. He's getting a lot of new offers, OU being one of them. But I expect the Sooners, specifically with Ja'Sir Rogers, to go after this guy in Penn State's class.
Very interesting. The wide receiver we talk about it so much. It just is unreal how it's kind of, they get Braden Allen in. You're thinking, okay, is maybe winding down. But there you go. An opportunity arises with another guy they like. Obviously after a coaching change, I don't know if anyone had penciled in. Like we said, even 3 weeks ago or a month ago. And so Oklahoma trying to strike while the iron's hot there. What about some ones that could happen, right? I mean, Penn State's happened, right? James Franklin has been fired. They're on the search now. A lot of people think maybe Matt Rule there, maybe Kurt Signetti, whatever. We'll see how that shakes out there in Happy Valley. But there are other ones. I mentioned Florida is one that we've been circling for a while because there's a number of Oklahoma guys, Davian Gross in particular, who we've talked about a lot, for the last year plus or so. Sounds like Billy Napier. It's pretty wobbly there for him after they took another loss in College Station over the weekend. I know there were others as well that you had in mind. What about some potential firings that Oklahoma could reap the benefit of that you're keeping an eye on?
The elephant in the room, and by the way, the reporting out of Gainesville this week has been
crazy.
Nuts.
It's crazy.
I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like some of the reporting we've seen this week. And that's not, it's just literally acknowledging the fact that there have been numerous reports out there basically saying donors at Florida are leaking information to reporters saying it's probably going to be Billy Napier's last game this weekend.
Yeah, and that's weird. It's weird to have this weekend they play Mississippi State at home. Regardless, this is happening, which is how it sounds, which is kind of nuts.
Jeff Lebby, potentially. Jeff Lebby. If Lebby can pull off the upset, you would think that's definitely the nail in the coffin. But I can't remember the last time I ever heard reporters basically saying, well, donors are saying it's probably going to happen in the next 5 days after this specific game, whether he wins or loses. Regardless, I think everyone in college football has been waiting for the Florida shoe to drop, and Oklahoma will turn its attention to that as well. I should mention here, I don't know that Jasir Rogers at Penn State is the only Penn State commit Oklahoma's preparing to go after. I've heard a few other names pop up on the radar. And I think if you're Oklahoma, you kind of got to do your due diligence, especially with a class like Florida's, and it starts with a guy like Davian Gross. I think Oklahoma's going to cautiously approach that situation there. KJ Ford is going to be mentioned a couple of times. Sure. I don't necessarily believe that Oklahoma is preparing to press all that much for Ford. And I would agree with that approach, to be quite honest with you, because Oklahoma has tried again and again, and it's just never necessarily come together the way that Oklahoma would want it to. But Gross is obviously somebody, that OU was right there for. It was a photo finish at the final line for this guy. And we've documented it in the past, Davian's family connections to the state of Oklahoma and OU, and him growing up a big fan of the program. But Oklahoma doesn't necessarily need to press for this guy because Jasir Rogers, they already have 3 commitments to this point at receiver, if I remember correctly, and they may not be done either, because the other guy that I really wanted to talk about in terms of potential stuff, Josh, Oklahoma fans may not be keeping up with what's going on in Madison, Wisconsin. But man, Luke Fickell, can't say I saw this coming. I did not expect.
They're terrible.
They're bad. And under a coach like Luke Fickell, Wisconsin is bad. And I didn't know this. But did you know that already out to I believe a 2-4 start, Wisconsin's remaining schedule is in order: Ohio State, Oregon, Washington, Indiana, and Minnesota. That is how do you draw almost every single top half Big Ten team to close out your slate? That blew my mind reading that. Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana alone is unfair. Washington, Illinois, Minnesota, basically what I'm saying is I think we all know where this one's going. And if it plays out the way many of us expect it to, well, then all of a sudden, a guy that Oklahoma staff adores behind the scenes could potentially be back on the open market, and that's Jayden Pettit. I wrote about this for the subscribers at Sooners Illustrated earlier in the week, kind of briefly summarizing the situation here. Like Oklahoma has viewed Jayden Pettit as one of its top overall receivers on its board in 2026.
Sure.
They love this guy. And I checked in with Pettit earlier in the week, and he basically said, yeah, like I hear from Oklahoma, if not every single day, then I don't know that a day goes by, more than two where I don't hear from OU. Now, like Oklahoma's made it very apparent, right? Like they want him in the class. And I honestly am now operating under the assumption that even if OU were to add a fourth wide receiver like a Jasiah Rogers or a Milan Paris or a Davian Gross, the list goes on.
Yeah.
They might be willing to take a fifth if that name is Jayden Pettit.
I'll say, is there a limit here? Like how many receivers would they take? I mean, theoretically, like you said, you have Allen and Okwulueze and Odom. Is it just kind of the more the merrier? Is there a cap on this at somewhere? When you talk about all these, you mentioned Paris. There's another guy we've talked about a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that they would be willing to like exert a ton of effort beyond 4, right? But there is a potential for a lot of turnover in the receiver room at Oklahoma. And
yeah.
Jayden Pettit, honestly, is the kind of guy that like he has a chance to play almost right away for you if you go and get him. He's that caliber of talent. He's that kind of profile. So I just Pettit told me he doesn't have anything necessarily planned out in terms of visits elsewhere. He said that he really just is focusing on the season and isn't thinking that far ahead. But towards the back end of the year, if something changes at Wisconsin, and I think we all expect it will, all of a sudden, like Oklahoma is not only almost assuredly going to be going after this guy again with everything it has. Like OU's going to have to really figure out, all right, like, do we shuffle the picture for us in terms of spots in the cycle? And I wouldn't blame them one bit if they did, because Jayden Pettit is that kind of guy for them.
Yeah, can't say I saw that coming at Wisconsin. Luke Fickell was so successful at Cincinnati. Now, obviously, in hindsight, you look back at it. Obviously, Marcus Freeman was on that staff. Marcus Freeman doing very well for himself at Notre Dame. It feels like, was that Cincinnati success a little bit more about him? Maybe. I mean, you're going hindsight trying to figure it out because it's been awful. I mean, Wisconsin's a program that in our lifetime has always been very competitive, playing for Big Ten championships and things like that. And they're awful. I mean, they're not going to go bowling with that schedule. I mean, they only have 2 wins right now. Like that's crazy. So.
I mean, there's a real world.
What direction will Wisconsin go? That's very interesting. So
yeah, I am fascinated by it. I mean, there's a real world where they only finish with 2 wins.
Oh yeah.
And if you told me that about Wisconsin under Luke Fickell a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have believed you one bit. It really is something that we probably aren't talking about enough. How shocking the results have been out there in Madison.
Yeah, I mean, they're irrelevant right now, which is, again, they weren't our whole life. I mean, that's a team that played in Rose Bowls. It's kind of nuts. So we'll see. Yeah. All stuff to keep an eye on. It's crazy how ablaze the coaching carousel is already. There have been a lot of movement, and there's more expected in the SEC. And we might be talking about this more, as we go along the rest of the season. I mean, you look at Auburn and Arkansas, and I mean, there are more than a few pretty high-profile jobs that could still come open, this season. How that impacts Oklahoma, whether it's staff or recruiting or portal, maybe even when we get there down the road. I mean, it's going to be interesting.
And I continue to remind people too, like it's one thing to talk about how wild this coaching carousel cycle has been and will be, but it's also another thing when you really dive down the rabbit hole of like reminding yourself the trickle-down effect of what we're seeing currently. Like, yeah, Auburn and some of these other massive jobs, Florida. I mean, what happens if a Ole Miss or an SMU comes available?
Yeah.
Stuff to think about, especially if you're Oklahoma, man,
No doubt. I mean, interesting. And the portal stuff did change too. No longer does the window open whenever a coach gets fired now. It's whenever the new guy is hired, which is very interesting. And there's just one portal window in January now. So it's like after it's in January. So it's post signing day and all that. So there is no post-spring portal window anymore. So it's going to be very interested. Collin and I, we do a lot of portal talk, especially in January. That's what these shows basically are in the month of January. It feels like it's going to be even more insane because that is the only window.
That's going to suck.
Now, we won't have to worry about the post-spring portal window, which would be nice. But it's going to be hectic, and all these coaching changes is influencing all of that. So very interesting stuff to keep an eye on. One last recruiting, side of things. We'll do some team stuff on the way out. You were in Salina on Friday, catching up with our guy Bowe Bentley. I was supposed to be there with you. Had a late schedule. We talked about on the show last week that I was going to be there, and we were going to get to see Bowe and everything. But Collin was there. Had a late schedule change. Had to be at the Cotton Bowl super early on Saturday for HQ stuff, which it all went great. But we had to shift some things around just to make it make more sense. But you were there to see Bowe. First off, did you go to Tender Smokehouse?
I did.
How was it?
Very good. I enjoyed it.
Bowe had a good wreck.
Bowe immediately upon seeing me was like, "What did we think about Tender Smokehouse?" So first words.
What'd you get?
I went Texas Trinity, which is brisket rib sausage. So I mean, that's how I judge my place. Go Texas Trinity, and then you get a side. I usually go mac and cheese.
That sounds incredible.
They brought up some Texas toast, threw some pickles on, and some brisket on the Texas toast, and it was a great way for me to get back on track after my dear friend Josh Callaway, big time me, the consummate professional that he is, went to CBS Sports HQ in the AM and left me out to dry. What a cold world it is.
Hopefully, it would be in Salina, but maybe down the road a little. We talked about it for a year. I mean, this is only our third year, but we've always talked about in the Texas, the playoffs and the state championship games at AT&T. If Salina can make a little run, maybe we can figure something out there. We'll see how it all shakes out, bowl schedule and stuff, but something.
Hopefully, I don't want to risk the paparazzi finding you, but anyways, little old me, Josh Callaway left me out to dry. I know it affects him, so I'm giving him a hard time.
No doubt, it sucked, but thankfully Collin was out there. You get to see Bowe play. I mean, obviously you've seen Bowe play, multiple times now, but you also caught up with him. Like you said, you talked to him. What was kind of some of the takeaways getting to catch up with Bowe? And you passed along some of this stuff to our VIP members already. That's why you subscribe and you're in on this sort of thing. But what were some of the talking points catching up with Bowe a little bit? Obviously in the middle of his senior season, getting ready. He'll be signing here coming up very, very soon. What were some of the things that you guys caught up with about?
Yeah, listen, and first thing I would say is if you're an Oklahoma fan watching or listening to the show and, you want something fun to do, especially if you live up in the state and you want a little bit of a shorter drive, I would highly encourage you to potentially check out one of these final few home games at Salina. Because, I mean, it was Friday Night Lights to the umpteenth degree. I mean, it was homecoming night in Salina. I pull up like multiple hours before kickoff. Fans are tailgating in the parking lot.
That's awesome.
Lawn chairs and grills everywhere. 2 hours pregame, I'm walking up, and they had brought in the extender stands on both ends of the end zone and on the home sidelines just to get everyone in the game. Complete sellout, thousands of people, not an empty seat in the place. The student section had its own extender stands in the end zone. It was a whiteout. They did the chalk throws, and thousands of people as the sun sets over Bobcat Stadium. It was a gorgeous setting. And I bring that up because it's like Bowe is still, he's not as in the headlines as he once was, right? But he's still the guy. And I thought it was really cool kind of seeing him in this atmosphere. It's his last homecoming. Genuinely a sellout crowd. Mm-hmm. After the game, there are people lining up to, little kids are asking for his towel and people are asking for autographs. It's crazy. And my primary takeaway from talking to him after all of this was just he's about as at peace as I've seen him in a long time. He just looked really calm, happy, there's something to that, obviously,
Sure.
with the spotlight this guy has been in. And, we talked about a lot of different stuff. Some of the headlines would be just like, how pleased he is with the direction of the program and just how much he appreciates being committed to the place that he grew up rooting for, and we talked a little bit about it on and off the record, just like he is at this point in Norman every single home game, even if at one point they had a rain delay on one of their Friday night games. He had to play Saturday morning-ish, not in Salina, and then got changed and drove up right after the Saturday game for him. And, he talked a lot about how he doesn't take any of that for granted, how awesome that's been for him and his family, how he's really enjoyed watching OU play this year and continuing to strengthen bonds within the program. And then, I thought it was cool too. He talked a lot about Red River and how he had never been to the game before, but he watched it every Saturday. This past Red River was his first time at the State Fair in the Cotton Bowl. Not the outcome he wanted, obviously, but yeah, he talked a lot about how he just can't wait to stand on the 50-yard line in that game next year. He can't believe that that's going to happen. And then I thought it was powerful too. I asked him about John, and he was like, that's a guy that I look up to. I mean, it's no secret they're really close, but he's like, I aspire to be what John is on and off the field. And he was like, honestly, it's great that he did that physically and everything, but he said it's a testament to John's character, and it's the type of character I want to bring to the table as Oklahoma's quarterback. So it was cool seeing Bowe. I'm a big fan of this guy. We've built up a good bond over the years, and I would encourage OU fans, if they can, to go watch him play one of his final few games at Salina, because he's very happy about his personal trajectory, the program's trajectory, and he's a cool guy to go watch and see.
It would be really cool, and who knows how this is all going to shake out, right? There are so many variables still. Obviously, there's still a lot of season left. We're halfway through the regular season, right? But if John Mateer were to return to Oklahoma next year and Bowe gets that opportunity to be with him every day for a year, and maybe get the keys in 2027 again, who knows? I mean, we're looking way down the road there, but we'll see. We'll see. There's some interesting wrinkles there, but definitely cool. Hopefully, maybe we'll work something out later in the year where I can get out there to see him. But just a guy that seems like Oklahoma fans are going to really like in due time. They do already, but obviously whenever he's actually on the roster, and he'll be signing here very soon. Sign day is sneakily approaching. We're already mid-October here.
Yeah, so, thanks for reminding me. Appreciate that.
I know. We have a lot of coverage for that whenever we get there, but we got a lot of stuff before then. But It is coming up. Something to think about. One quick team housekeeping item, and then I'll get your thoughts on this weekend and kind of where you're at with the actual team itself as they head out to Columbia. Brent Venables confirmed yesterday on the SEC teleconference that Jayden Gibson is no longer with Oklahoma. Obviously, this has been something that, it's a weird subject, so we haven't really talked about it, but we've kind of alluded to it a little bit on the board here and there. I mean, obviously he hasn't been around. Just a sucky situation. Obviously, this is a guy that was really good 2 years ago. I said that, and I got some pushback on our board and as well as from on X a little bit when I was talking about that he was really good in 22 because he only had, I think, 13 or 14 catches, but he had 5 touchdowns and he had multiple 50-yarders. Dude, we have not seen anyone make big plays like that in 2 years. He was good, man, and he had a lot of upside, and just injuries just completely derailed him. He's going to enter the portal, it sounds like, and hopefully he can maybe find another spot. And maybe I sincerely hope he can get back on the field at some point. But Collin, I mean, again, not a shocker. Not that we expected to see him this year because we both did not, but just kind of a sour end for him. It looked like such a promising career at OU at one point in time, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think that this is necessarily a shock to anybody. I think the writing was kind of on the wall once it became clear he was going to choose to return for this season, and then from there, just nothing happened.
Once you heard he had a setback, it was like, oh boy,
Yeah, I mean it. you knew from that moment on how this was probably going to go. And it's unfortunate. I mean, I'm with you. I think that this guy doesn't necessarily get the credit that he deserves in terms of what he provided Oklahoma on the field when he was healthy and able. But the bottom line is he just wasn't a lot of the times. And when he just wasn't necessarily all that involved in some moments. And at some point, like, rubber meets the road. You gotta figure out what's going on in your career with these eligibility rules and the time that has already passed. And I think it's also just kind of a friendly reminder too. It's like, think of how many changes have happened over the course of time when this guy was technically someone who kind of signed on with Jeff Lebby, back in like the Nick Evers days. So I wish him the best. I really hope he figures it out and finds a place and can make everything work, because when it's all humming and clicking for Jayden Gibson, he's as talented as anybody, as kind of that big perimeter threat. I hope we see him again. I hope we see him find success in the next chapter. And like you mentioned, it's an unfortunate ending for a guy that had a lot of promise at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I feel like Emmett Jones had kind of unlocked him a little 2 years ago. And he was one of many last year, that infamous 2024 receiver core that just we never got to see. I mean, you looked at it, was like, man, Nick Anderson, Joel Farouk, Angelo Anthony, Deion Burks comes in. Like, it felt unbelievable on paper, and we just never got to see it, and it kind of just closes the chapter on him. Just unfortunate. Unfortunate. That's football. It's how it goes sometimes, but we'll see what happens with him down the road. Certainly had some great highlights 2 years ago. Some of the best, really. Again, you look at those highlights. I was kind of perusing it whenever this news kind of was confirmed yesterday. And Tom Green, by the way, was the one who asked Brent about that and confirmed that on the SEC teleconference. It just was kind of like, man, we have not seen a wide receiver make plays like this in a while. It's kind of like, whoa, it's almost jarring to see a guy, catch a ball in the middle, break a couple tackles, score. It's like, oh, that's what that looks like. Been a while. So we'll see what happens with Jayden down the road. And again, it looks like he's going to enter the portal. We'll see where he winds up, and maybe he can get back on the field. Probably not till next year, you wouldn't think, obviously, but who knows? We'll see what happens down the road. All right, let's talk about this weekend a little bit. Obviously, again, as always, we'll have the game preview tomorrow. Tom Green, James Jackson, and myself. But I do want to get your thoughts on the game. Oklahoma heading out to Columbia, first SEC road game of the year as they take on South Carolina. For you, Collin, obviously, I want your thoughts on the game and where you're kind of at with Oklahoma going out there to take on the Gamecocks. Who've had kind of, a disappointing season so far, but still a lot of talent on that team. But also just your thoughts on the team. We haven't talked since the Texas game, on the show here. Obviously, that was the big reality check for everyone, of kind of an eye-opening, like, oh, man, maybe this isn't what we thought it was going to be. Where are you with Oklahoma right now after Saturday and this offense, and what can still be accomplished this year? Where we on Monday, James, Tom, myself did the panic meter, panic button. Where are you? Are you hitting the panic button? And how are you feeling about Oklahoma's chances to go on the road and win this week?
I'm not really close to hitting the panic button, but I think also a layer to that is just like, for me coming into the season, I was looking at more of like an 8-4 record. I thought that was fair. I know I said it here on the pod. I thought Oklahoma's 8-4 this season was everyone else's 9-3, 10-2. And I also thought too, we do this thing where we pick individual games and kind of predicting the record. It's like Oklahoma's going to have a lot of chances to steal some games, and Oklahoma's going to have a lot of chances to slip. I mean, it's just the nature of this gauntlet that they face. And I think I wrote about it right after the game in the little snap judgments piece that I do whenever the clock hits 0 after every contest. It's just like, I don't know how many games you're going to win with no running game, really no passing game, multiple penalties, missed tackles, turnovers. I'm not hitting the panic button because it's just like, I don't know how I don't even know how you have a shot in that instance. But at the same time, going back over the tape and, doing my homework, like there's just a lot of stuff that I think Oklahoma is leaving on the table right now. And if they can figure that out, then they're going to be just fine. They're still going to be able to go win 8-9 games and get this together. But it kind of starts with obviously John Mateer. The decision-making process has got to sharpen. The offensive line has really got to put it together. These receivers, these backs, this offense has just got to become more of a threat against SEC foes. The stat is flying around right now about OU's inability to score multiple touchdowns against SEC conference game or in SEC conference games.
Painful,
and it's
painful stats. Been they haven't scored 2 touchdowns, I don't think, yet in an SEC game, offensive touchdowns.
Which, that can't happen.
We're not looking for much here. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just how that is. But offensively, I watched the game tape and I thought Ben Arbuckle actually had a good approach. I just think that there was stuff out there, some meat on the bone. I think John, he'll settle back in. And defensively too, missed tackles was one thing. I thought that Oklahoma kind of dialed back its aggressive nature on the defensive line. I don't know that they ran as many stunts, twists, and kind of the defensive line games they like to run. And I think that's going to be something you see pick back up. But, I think it really kind of falls down to also, Texas is a good football team.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing, too, that I don't want people to go too far down the rabbit hole of. I think a lot of this week has been Oklahoma looked awful, this, that, and the third. That they made a ton of mistakes. I think Texas is just really solid, and Texas beat Oklahoma. They won on both lines of scrimmage in most instances. Arch Manning played a good game. I think you also have to acknowledge you tip the cap to your opponent too. And that's why too I'm Oklahoma. I think is still going to have a chance to be just fine, because if you play your game, you're going to get your best from other opponents, just like Texas brought to the table. But at the same time, it's the ebbs and flows of a contest. And I think if Oklahoma can kind of patch things up and do a little bit of a better job of withstanding some adversity and taking on some of the punches that the opposing team throws, I still think that, and I still believe Oklahoma has a chance to kind of be the team that many of us foresaw in the preseason.
What about this weekend? How do you think this is going to shake out with Oklahoma going out to Columbia? Obviously, they are a favorite this weekend. South Carolina, a little hit or miss. Like I said, we'll have the game preview tomorrow. But for you, what's your pick, obviously, for the game? And just how are you feeling about Oklahoma going on the road and winning in the SEC? First real road game of the year, all due respect to Temple, right? This is a different atmosphere than they played in this year, where it's going to be hostile. What's your pick this weekend? How do you think this is going to actually go as far as Oklahoma going out to South Carolina and trying to get a win on the road, in conference?
Yeah, I can't really figure out if this is a good thing or a bad thing for Oklahoma, considering the timing of it, right off Red River, first loss. It feels like, in a sense, it's good because it's an opportunity to reset, get away from Norman and all the buzz that's going on, and go have an opportunity to go win big game. But at the same time, I looked at our South Carolina board a couple times this week. I know that a lot of people out there are down on this Gamecock squad. I still think that they're a tough test for OU, especially in South Carolina. OU's got to go into that environment. That this team, especially Shane Beamer, is going to have a chip on his shoulder, an opportunity to play against the program he once coached at. And Shane's got a lot on the line. This is the best way I can put it. And this is why I can't figure out what the read is here, whether this benefits or potentially hurts Oklahoma. This is kind of a desperation game for both teams. There's a lot on the line for both squads in this one. And ideally, you'd like to, if you're OU, go on the road and compete against a team that maybe you have some advantages over when you have a lot on the line. But this team, man, South Carolina still has a lot to play for. And there's, program changing stuff on the table too. And South Carolina's got a lot of talent. I don't need to go through from Lenore Sellers to the edge rushers to the receivers and, all stuff that you guys will talk about on the game preview pod. But this is going to be a challenge. And it is a challenge at a time where it isn't just Oklahoma that has a lot to gain or lose. It feels like South Carolina, in kind of the same boat. I think that adds a layer to this context or this contest that is important to consider. I think this is going to be a tough battle, and I will pick Oklahoma to win. I'll go 21-17. But I don't know how this one's going to go, man. It feels like this is a wide variance game for both Oklahoma and South Carolina.
Right there with you. I still don't. We record the game preview on Thursday, so we're going to do it here in just a little bit, and I don't really even know what I'm going to say. It is a weird game, and it is huge for both teams. Like you said, it feels like a major fork on the road for Oklahoma. They need this bad. So we'll get into it tomorrow, but interesting weekend coming up in Columbia, to say the least. Collin, safe travels up to Oklahoma. You're going to be in Stillwater tonight, and then you said you're going to Norman tomorrow. Seeing a lot of the OK prep circuit. Lots of interesting OU guys, both in both games, both tonight and tomorrow for you. So safe travels up here to the great state of Oklahoma. I'll be missing you because I'll be heading out east to get out to South Carolina. But we'll catch up next week as always. We'll catch up on a few things and be getting ready for Ole Miss coming to town next week. Appreciate you as always, my sir.
Looking forward to driving up to Stilly tonight and then throwing my hat in the ring for the Oklahoma State head coaching job. Don't expect much, but I'll report back next week. See what the fine folks out there for the Cowboys think about my candidacy, because I am open.
Turn it around, man. You could turn it around. Did you see the shirt off section thing?
I loved that.
It was unbelievable.
I love that.
It was unbelievable.
It may not be a popular take. I hate that this has happened to a place like Oklahoma State. Yeah, man. I really have a great amount of respect for Oklahoma State as a program, and I hope that, whatever the future may hold, they can better the state. But the shirts off thing, I believe they're doing like a promo now. I
just saw that it started with one guy, just one guy. Yeah. That guy's awesome. That guy's a legend forever for starting that. It's great. It's unbelievable. It's fun. Anyway, I think that's it for now. Back with the game preview with Tom, James, and myself tomorrow, and then we'll obviously have full coverage from Columbia all day on Saturday. Collin and I will be back with you next Thursday, as always, to catch up on some recruiting stuff and anything else going on with the team going into a big home weekend next week with Ole Miss. So we'll have a lot to get into on the show next Thursday. That's it for now. For Collin Kennedy, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll see you next time right back here, as always, on Sooners Illustrated.